Hi guys. Okay, we're going to do lesson 5.3 in our math book. I think you already did your quiz and hopefully you're going to keep going today with this lesson. This lesson is kind of a little bit of a review from a lesson we learned already in chapter 4 about the distributive property. So we're going to review that strategy today. Okay, so the title of this lesson is Problem Solving, Use the Distributive Property. Essential question. How can you use the strategy draw a diagram to multiply with multiples of 10? All right, so multiples of 10 just mean numbers that count by 10. So, like what is the answer when you're multiplying by 10? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So all of those numbers that have that zero at the end are multiples of 10. And today we're going to learn how do we multiply by numbers like that? How do we multiply 7 times 20 or 6 times 40? All right, so unlock the problem. The school assembly room has 5 rows of chairs with 20 chairs in each row. If the third grade classes fill 3 rows of chairs, how many third graders are at the assembly? All right, so this again has a couple it has an extra clue that we're not used to seeing. So let's go through one step at a time to see how we can solve this one. Okay, remember our first step right here is we read the problem and we figure out what am I supposed to find in this problem. So that question mark is the clue. Okay, how many third graders are at the assembly? So I need to find how many third graders are at the assembly. Okay, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to think about what are my clues that are going to help me with solving this problem. I know that there's 5 rows of chairs and there's 20 chairs in each row. And the third graders are only going to fill 3 rows of chairs. So they kind of gave you an extra clue that you didn't really even need. Okay. So I do need to use the 20 chairs in each row because they're filling rows. But I only need to count the rows that the third graders are in. So which one of these numbers of rows are the third graders in? Just the 3. So there's going to be some extra rows. Sometimes, like when we go into the Kiva for an assembly or the gym, the third graders only go in some of the rows, and then there's maybe extra rows behind us for other kids. So we don't even need this clue of 5 rows. We just need the 3 rows. So now how am I going to use that information? Well, I know in my mind already that if it's 3 rows of chairs and there's 20 chairs in each, that's a multiplication problem, right? So I know I'm going to be doing 3 times 20. Did you think of that too? Okay. But now we have to think of, well, what strategy can I do for 3 times 20 because I'm not really good at really big numbers like 20 when I'm multiplying. So today we're going to use the distributive property because it tells me I can break apart the factor 20. Do you remember that about the distributive property? Okay, so the distributive property is nice because it says if a number is too tricky for you to multiply by, you can break it apart. So I'm going to break apart the number 20. So here's my original multiplication problem, 3 times 20. And that could actually equal, keep the 3 the same, one of the factors stays the same, but then the other factor, the 20, what could you break it into that's easy to multiply by? I always like to break big numbers into, start with a 10 and see what's left over. So if I break this 20 into a 10, then I would have another 10. 10 plus 10 is 20, right? Okay, so now that I've broken apart the 20 and start with the 10 and then see what's left over. So 10 plus what equals 20? 10 plus 10. Now I'm going to think of, okay, well, what does that mean? Can I draw it as a diagram to see what that looks like? Okay, so over here, where it says solve the problem, says draw a diagram. Finish the shading to show 3 rows of 20 chairs. So I've got 3 times 20, which means 3 rows of 20. So down the side, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. That's how many rows. And then across here, I need to do 20 chairs. Now they already did 10 of the chairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oops, I missed count one. Okay, so my other set is going to be another 10. Now, throughout this whole lesson, I'm going to give you a hint. They kind of, if you look very closely, they do like a bold line down, and that is showing you a group of 10. Okay, so every time you see that bold line, it means there's a section of 10, another section of 10, and if it were to keep going, it'd be another section of 10, just so you don't have to recount every time. But now I need another group of 10 because really it's supposed to be 3 rows of 20 in each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Okay, but I need to shade this in because I'm supposed to have 3 rows of it. Now you're going to just shade. I'm just going to fill in the dots this time, but you're supposed to shade just like they did. So this whole picture is 3 rows of 20, but we could break it down into 2 separate pictures. This one is 3 times 10 because it's 3 rows of 10 here. And then this one is also 3 times 10. Because it's another 3 rows of 10. Okay, so now that we've broken that big number 20 down into 2 smaller arrays, I have 2 multiplication problems I need to do, which is what we learned when we first learned about the distributive property, that it was going to make 2 smaller, easier multiplication problems for you to do. So here I have 3 times 10, which is easy. You know that in your head is 30. And then I have another group of 3 times 10, which is also 30. So then I can just put those totals together. 30 plus 30 is 60. So you just solved 3 times 20 by using the distributive property, and it equals 60. So there's 60 third graders at the assembly. So now this bottom problem is just asking you to explain how breaking apart the factor 20 makes finding that product easier. So what did we just do that made finding the product easier? Well, for me, I am good at multiplying by tens, but I'm not always good at multiplying by 20s. So if I can break 20 down to it into a 10 and a 10, and I can just multiply by tens, that's what's easier for me, multiplying by 10. Okay, so we'll stop now and we'll do a new video for the next page.